Get anything good?
I hope so.
AndreCorreaNow, right?
Yeah. That's what my driver's license says.
7200 G Master?
70 to 200 G macro. It's brand new. I'm actually testing it out today.
Sorry, I'm a huge fan. May I?
Sure.
Theodore Papadopoulos.
So what do you shoot with?
Depends, really.
Well, it's the right tool for the right job, right?
That's what I'm always saying, man. Like, I don't understand how guys can get so attached to a brand.
Then you have these pointless, endless debates about...
Yeah, I mean, take the Fickman assault laser. It's a classic, nobody can deny that, but let's just say it's a bit dated. Especially when you have the unlimited firepower of the Emulation plated rail repeater.
Who are you?
I'm just someone who's trying to help even the score.
The score?
Your world is about to change. And given your extracurricular activities, you can't really afford not to take action.
You mean my YouTube channel?
You have a YouTube channel?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the alien technology you have stashed in your basement. I'm talking about the undeclared Zartanian credits you have in your VC account. I'm talking about the communications we've intercepted between you and intergalactic criminals.
What do you want?
Like I said, to help even the score.
Looking for a non-biased, very scientific review on filmmaking gear? Well, you clicked on the wrong thumbnail. Hello, I'm AndreCorreaNow, and this is AndreCorreaNow, a show about the art of filmmaking, the craft behind it, and the technologies that make it all possible. Friends, I love the film look, and I cannot lie. Your other YouTubers can't deny, but when you see the itty bitty grain in a Kodak 250D, you get sprung. But I am, after all, a product of my environment, and the speediness of digital affords me more time to spend on my two favorite hobbies, avoiding responsibility and procrastinating. And although I never shot with film in my life, I always wanted to emulate the look and feel that a film, real film, analog film, has. So when Dehancer, a company that makes a plugin for Premiere Pro and other NLEs, reached out to me, and they offered me a copy of their plugin in exchange for this review, I said, sure, I'll do it. Eventually. And I'm glad to tell you that eventually is today. And although I get to keep a copy of the plugin when I'm done, nobody's giving me any money, nobody's telling me what to say, because though nobody ever put this baby in a corner. But if I have to be honest, and my attorney says I do, I was gonna buy Dehancer anyways, because it is an awesome plugin. And I'll say this, even though I already bought another film emulation plugin that I've been using before Dehancer. I like it better because Dehancer can do things the other film emulation software can't do. Oh, and by the way, this is not an overlay. We don't like overlays. This is not an overlay, okay? No overlays here. Overlays don't give you any kind of control. You're just basically putting an image on top of another image, and it works. It'll be fine if you're doing like social media stuff, but if you're gonna do like real filmmaking, you gotta have to have some kind of plug-in, because otherwise, yeah, no, don't do it. So for example, with Dehancer, you can change the film grain in the highlight, midtones, and the shadows. So way more control. And by the way, it's a simulation of the grain, not a overlay. And that is just the tip of a very large, feature-rich iceberg that we're gonna look into right now. But before we move on to yet another cinematic experience, let's talk about something very important. Are you someone who's struggling with weight loss, perhaps you're losing your hair a little bit, not a lot of energy. I can't help you with any of that. But if you subscribe to this channel, you're gonna feel much better about it. Now that you're nice and subscribed, let's not put the horse before the cart. Go to Dehancer.com to get your free trial, grab yourself some footage, and make sure they set your timeline to Rec 709. Then let the plugin know what kind of footage you have. And this is interesting because you can select from a specific camera model. And by the way, Dehancer is adding new models of cameras profiles all the time. Or you can just choose Rec 709. And this actually works if you shot something in hybrid log gamma too. As long as the gamma was Rec 709, then this works. And if you think I'm wrong, please feel free to say something nasty in the comment section below. I found that choosing Rec 709 was actually really useful when working with Mavic Air 2 footage. DJI has a well-known issue where they oversaturate the colors, but when you apply Dehancer and you choose the profile Rec 709, I found that the colors get really nice, and everything corrected well, and everything's all good. So I love it. But I have to say the thing that has impressed me with the Dehancer team is that these updates for the camera profiles keep coming out. I think they just released the, I wanna say is the Alexa 35 profile. Pretty nice, right? Pretty nice. Please take note of the film emulation software that shall be unnamed at this time. You should update your camera profiles more often. If you come from the film world and you truly understand how film is developed, then you're gonna love how much control you have with Dehancer. If you didn't, well, then you have a lot of homework to do. And then you're gonna really love how much control you have with Dehancer. My experience is overwhelming at first, but I'm glad I put in the time because the kind of results I can get out of Dehancer with my A7 IV, so good. But it won't seem like that at first. In fact, when you first add Dehancer to your footage, things are gonna look a little bit off, especially in the film grain department. Now, my take is film grain is something that you should feel, not something that you should see, unless you're looking for it. And if you are looking for it, what are you doing? I mean, I don't know, go for a bike ride or something. Don't look for film grain. It's weird. The next tab is the film tab where you can choose from 63 different types of film emulation, and that is a lot of emulation. Let me tell you, Film Convert, which is the other software I used that I bought with my own money, doesn't have as many. And with this many profiles, you really should be able to fulfill your artistic vision, whether you want to make something look like 1970s, like very vintage, or if you're looking for that new film look. Next, we have Film Developer, which is all about manipulating the color contrast within the image. I have to say something here. Dehancer mimics or simulates the actual process in real life of how film is developed. So each one of these tabs actually represents a physical process. And that's why I said earlier that if you understand how film is developed in the real world, this will give you an incredible amount of control. So I love that. Even though there's a bit of a learning curve, again, worth your while to invest time into learning this plugin. Next, we have film compression. I really like film compression. This is not, I repeat, this is not being marketed as a highlight recovery tool. However, it does a really good job with the roll-off between the highlights, the midtones, and if you do blow your highlights, it actually looks more natural. So you're not gonna be able, if you blow up your highlights, they're gone, okay? There's no magic, free lunch here. However, the ability to go from highlight to the midtones, that looks more analog, should I say, and that looks way better. So I really like this tool, and it's something that I don't know if anybody else has this, so kudos here. Next, we have expand. Remember how I said that when you first add Dehancer to your footage, things are gonna look a little bit off. Part of that is intentional because the way that the Dehancer team has captured these emulations, they kind of left things the way film would naturally look. So the contrast points are on purpose off. So your footage is gonna be a little flat. And one of the things that is in the manual, a manual that you should read because there's a lot there. I read it. So you should be able to see how the black and white points can be manipulated. In fact, in the manual, it says that the very second thing you should do is set your contrast points. And throughout the process of grading this footage, you would have to go back to expand and manipulate the contrast points as you go. So expand is actually really important. And if there's one feedback that I would give to the Dehancer team in future updates to the plugin is that perhaps expand should be the very next thing in the tabs versus whatever this is. Next, we have Color Head, which is a simulation of two analog devices, photo enlargers and print lights. And this is where you can change colors a little bit and add temperature. Can I say temperature? Temperature variations in your highlights, shadows, and midtones. Then we have some grain. And this is where things get interesting because, again, when you first put this on, I think is way too much. And I'm going to say this again. I think this was done on purpose so that you can minimize it. But if you want to make your footage looks old, or if you have any style that you're going after, you can definitely do that. In fact, if you turn this all the way up, the footage looks almost unwatchable. It really is a lot of grain. So if that's the look that you are looking for, you can definitely achieve it. For me, what I like to do is I like to put the minimum amount of grain possible and sometimes actually turn grain off completely, which you can do with Dehancer. So if you want the film colors, if you want all the other wonderful characteristics of film, but you don't want any grain, well, you can have it because this is great. It really is. Then we have Halation Bloom, which I know, they're two different tabs, but they do go hand in hand in analog film. So if you're gonna use one, then you should use the other. And use them, you should, because they really complement the aesthetic of film like nothing else. And this is where Dehancer really starts to pull ahead of the competition. These features are very unique and well priced, and we'll talk about them more later when we talk about the money. Next is the Vignette tab, which is just Vignette. I have to say this is perhaps the most underwhelming of the features here. It's nice, works fine, just like Vignette on Premiere Pro. Not much to say about it. Film breadth and gate weave. I know. 2 tabs into one. Oh my God. Stick with it, okay? Two things in one. It's gonna be fine. Film breadth is accidental change in exposure, contrast, and color from frame to frame as film moves. Gate weave is a mechanical swinging of a film strip while it's being pulled through a frame window in a film camera, projector, or video encoding device. In short, these are simulations of mechanical imperfections that make a digital image resemble the experience of watching analog film. As with grain, less is more. You want the audience to feel these things, but not necessarily see them. Less is more. Little sprinkles. Okay? 2 other tabs or additional tools worth mentioning are false color and LUT generator. False color is really useful because throughout this process, if you're color grading, you're going to be messing with the contrast. You're going to be doing all kinds of stuff, right? It's really good to see if things are expose or not expose, especially if you go back to the highlight recovery or not a highlight recovery tool, film compression, then it's really good to see how it's going from highlights to midtones, and also make sure that you're not clipping in a clip that wasn't clipped. No clipping. We don't like clipping here. Then we also have the LUT generator. And LUT generator is nice because you can output a LUT that can go into your monitor, or you can sell it online like a douchebag. It's your choice. Finally, we have output, and basically all output is this slider that can control the totality of the effects. So if you want less or more, if you think you went too much, you can dial it back here, and then that will be your final image. If you haven't guessed by now, I like this plugin a lot, and I'm going to be using it exclusively going forward. But there's always a few little things that could be better, right? So let's talk about that now. I would prefer to have access to all versions of Dehancer. Right now, the DaVinci Resolve and the Final Cut Pro versions are a separate purchase. Now, I understand that they work a little bit differently and that they have a few different options, and that the Dehancer team puts in a lot of work, but it'd be really nice to only have to buy it once. The other thing I would like to see improved further, I'll explain why I'm saying further in a second, is that Dehancer is very taxing on your hardware. And that's because it's reconstructing the image in a very particular way. And it does a phenomenal job at that. However, my first experience with Dehancer was kind of weird because I wanted to export files. And the first time I tried to export like a 1-minute clip, I think it was like 72 hours. That was a bug, and it was fixed, and that problem is resolved, thankfully. However, you have to be very careful of the codec you use when you are working with Dehancer, and adding grain and halation and bloom and all these other effects is something that you should do at the end after all your color grade is done, because one of the issues is that once you add that, you're gonna have some drop frames. It's a lot that's happening at once. And so I would love to see that improved. I don't know how that would be improved. I'm working with the Mac Studio with the M1 Max. It's the stock version because I is cheap. But yeah, I would love to see that improved. If one of the things I'd like to see is for the software to become more efficient and perhaps utilize the M1 architecture better in the future. I know that there are new versions coming out all the time, and it seems like every version is more efficient than the previous. But I would say that would be something to work on, and I think they already are, so that's fine. You know, they've been really good at updating the plugin all the time, so that's a plus. But those are the only things I would like to see either change or improved. Everything else is lovely. And speaking of love, let's speak about something I love: money. You see, if you think this is a filmmaking tool, then this is filmmaking fuel. Whether you're making YouTube videos, working on your next feature film, or doing documentary work, money is going to enter your decision-making matrix at some point. So let's do the math, shall we? You can get Dehancer Pro for Premiere Pro and After Effects for $399. That will give you all of the tools I talked about today for perpetuity, and you can install the plugin onto 2 machines, or you can buy various limited licenses for as low as $149. Those do expire after a while, so you may be okay if you're only going to use it for one project. Now, you might be saying, wow, that's a lot of money, especially since you can get Film Convert right now on sale for $174 for all major NLEs. So, let me address that. Film Convert is a good tool. Dehancer is a fantastic tool. You get many more film stock options with Dehancer, more control, and features like Halation, Bloom, Gate Weave, and Film Breath that Film Convert just doesn't have. There's also Film Box by Video Village, but I have never used that, and that is more expensive than any other option except for one. Video Box costs $999 for a perpetual license, and you can only install it in one machine. Oh, and that's for the indie price. If your production is over $2.6 million, the same license will cost you $5,000. And although their emulation also looks impressive, they don't have Film Breath. So now you might be saying, wow, $399 doesn't sound that bad. Remember that most expensive option I just mentioned a few moments ago? Do you know what that is? Film. So right now at B&H, Kodak Vision 3 250D costs $347.95 plus tax. This is for the 400-foot roll. Let's assume for a minute that you are the kind of free spirit who likes variety and you love to have the same assortment of film on hand that Dehancer offers. So that is $347.95 times 63 equals to about, a Honda Civic. So now $399 really doesn't sound that bad. But wait, there is more. You're not gonna pay $399. Oh no, no, no. Not you. You're my buddy. You get 10% off when you use the code ACNOW at checkout. You see how I did that? That is so shameless. By the way, I get a commission when you do that. So, for less than the cost of one roll of film, you get to keep Dehancer forever. It's cheaper and lasts longer than a marriage. And what's better than that? But that's it. I like Dehancer. It's awesome. I'm tired and I'm gonna go lay down. I'll see you later. By the way, watch one of these. Either this one or that one. It doesn't matter. Just keep watching. It's fun.